your subconscious probably perceives the life you're living right now as a threat. You are the asset. Unless you're willing to sell yourself, there's nothing sellable. You're not just a worker. You're also a thinker. If the lever I was pulling was effort, it was going to break.
How do you actually make an identity shift?
You have to step into the unknown.
A business can look successful on the outside and still be built on a fragile bargain that you can't keep making. You keep pushing, solving, producing, and carrying more until you realize that the business that you built for freedom has quietly turned you into the engine. And when that happens, the change required is not just about getting the work off of your plate. It's about changing the identity, beliefs, and business model that depends entirely on you in the first place. So with that, I'm excited to be joined by Bri Seeley. Bri helps high-achieving women rewire their subconscious patterns and identity structures that shape how they build, lead, earn, and grow. In our conversation, we discuss why effort and time are finite levers, and instead how Bri is rebuilding her business around mind and energy, what subconscious programming actually looks like in practice, including the solution to imposter syndrome, and how to expand your internal container so you can hold the next level of success without leaking it everywhere. If you get value from this conversation, hit subscribe and share it with a friend. And now here is my conversation with Bri Seeley. Bri, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ian.
Absolutely. So Bri, a lot of your work centers around the argument that effort doesn't create sustainable success, identity does. What do you mean by that?
So I found over 18 years of entrepreneurship that if the lever I was pulling was effort, that it was going to break. You know, personally, as humans, we have all sorts of things that happen. 18 months ago, I had a huge medical thing come up, and I was no longer able to run my business the way that I had been running it. And I realized that if I continued basing my business on effort alone, that I was constantly going to be the problem in my business. And so I started really diving into how can I leverage something that's not dependent on my capacity to show up in my business. And I mean, a lot of that is identity. A lot of that is the business model that you choose or that you use in your business. And I was meditating last year and had a very clear message come through. And it said, your 7-figure business will not be built through time and through effort, but instead it will be built through your mind and your energy. And so I've spent the last year being like, cool, what does that mean? And it led me to shutting down my business last year. And it's led me to now I'm launching 2 new businesses this year that are going to be incredibly lucrative with very little time and effort put in.
Wow. So what have you discovered in the last year in that process of what a business that's built through identity and leverage, I think it was, versus time and effort? Like what is the differences there?
Well, the biggest difference is that time and effort are finite resources. So we only all get 24 hours in a day. And especially if you're charging hourly, right? Like that makes it even worse. But even if you're consulting or if you're coaching or, you know, for even retainer packages or things like that, you have a limited amount of time. You can only take on a certain amount of clients. And so that's really what I've realized. And I realized last June that I was like, oh, I really don't like my business model because my business model depends on my ability to show up, be present, be coherent, coach, and my effort levels, things like that. So what I've really learned is utilizing more of my mind and my skill set and my energy over, you know, flexing my time and my effort, which are incredibly finite resources. They run out.
Yeah. So is maybe one of those more specific like shifts is you went from maybe selling your time as the service, like time with me is the service, the thing that I sell, to maybe a switch to I sell these outcomes. Like I'm going to create these outcomes for you is now more what you sell. Is that kind of the direction?
Yeah, I'm moving more into, I will have a product that are 30-day subconscious activations. And the brilliant thing about them, and the business model is based on my 10 years of being a business coach. So I've worked with 20,000 individuals to hear what's blocking them, the things that go on in their heads, the real reasons why they don't do the things that they know they want to do in their business. And so what I've done is I've solved that problem through individual 30-day activations that are subconscious, that I could sell each of them 1,000,000 times.
Wow.
And it requires zero extra time and zero extra effort on my part.
Nice. Amazing. So that is absolutely the dream that people want to get to, right? Is the more productized offers, right? That don't require your time to be involved in fulfillment. And you can do that through, in a service business, and this is maybe where I thought you were going initially, and it probably is a direction that you can go. But in a service business, right, you need to, in order to get yourself out of fulfillment, you need to delegate and build a team, right? And that also, there's a big identity shift that needs to happen there. If you're going to delegate and bring a team, is you need to kind of get out of your own way and like get out of this mindset and this idea that I'm the only one that can do it right. I'm the only one that, can do it. So you're going to need to effectively delegate and actually transition into becoming a leader from somebody who just works their butt off all the time to get to where you are.
Yeah,
But then,
totally. And then even the identity shift, like, and I've said to people too, I'm like, the reason that I'm able to launch this right now is because of the 10 years of service providing that I did. This is essentially like a 2.0 business from what I've already been doing. It's not a new business. So I already have an established network. I already have an email list. I already have customers. I already have communities, and I already have joint venture partners. So this, for me, like, had I tried to build this business 10 years ago, I don't think I would have been successful, because I hadn't built myself up to be the woman that could hold that kind of business. I needed to almost do the time and effort thing to kind of like maybe almost prove to myself that I could be the kind of woman that has that kind of business. And everyone's journey is different, right? But what I found is that I needed to do a lot of the becoming work and rewire my subconscious and decide what rules were true for me in my life. And I've done so much of that work, especially over I've been a hypnotherapist for 8 years as well. And I got certified in hypnotherapy because I was receiving it and it was changing my life so radically. And that's what I realized with my clients was like, oh, the procrastination is actually a subconscious issue. The procrastination is just a symptom of the like true thing that's going on. Or the imposter syndrome is just a symptom of what's really going on in the subconscious, right? Or the money blocks, the fear of failure, the fear of visibility, that like all of the things that we talk ourselves out of. And so I've done all that work for myself over the last 8 years and also my clients over the last 8 years. And now I'm just almost productizing it and building it out into more of like a system so that it doesn't rest on my shoulders alone to deliver, to have a successful business.
Yeah. And it's not just in your head, right? You've gotten it into a version that people can consume it without you being there.
Well,
fascinating.
Exactly what you said too. I had a conversation with a woman a year ago and I was like, what do you do? And she's like, I help women build exitable businesses. And I was like, excuse me, what? Like, can you say that again? What is exitable businesses? What do you mean exitable business? And she's like, I help women build businesses that they can sell. And I was like, tell me more. Because if you are a service provider, you can't sell your business. There's no you are the asset. Unless you're willing to sell yourself, there's nothing sellable in your business. But if you're building out intellectual property and a business that is not under your name, your likeness, your time, your effort, that becomes something that's acquirable, that's exitable. And so a year ago too, I started changing my focus into how do I build an exitable business and how do I build myself into having the identity of someone who could get a 7-figure check and sell a business?
Yeah. Amazing. What did that shift look like for you? Like, what parts of the identity shift had to happen for you? And I'm sure you're still working on it, but what do you see as part of that identity shift to become the woman that can receive a 7-figure check?
I mean, a lot of it for me has been like coming into my own personal power and not outsourcing my power. I think in general, like a lot of us tend to do that just kind of culturally or accidentally, or our family teaches us to do that or whatever. And so a lot of that has been me coming back into my own power and then really seeing myself as, more of like a CEO or a founder rather than like, oh, I'm just a coach, or, I'm a service provider, or if I'm not running the business isn't running. And so it's been a lot of like breaking down those subconscious patterns, those beliefs. Honestly, a lot of, breaking familial things around, my lineage of women in my family and what they had to go through and the limitations that they experienced, just partially based on time, right? Like my grandmother couldn't have an online business because it was the 1970s. There was no internet, right? So
Yeah.
but just also breaking down a lot of the limitations that have come before me and really opening up into I can do whatever I decide that I want for myself. And that's my freedom. And it's all about removing those stories that I tell myself about why I can't and starting to aim my subconscious at my future rather than my past.
A lot of that rhymes with some things that I'm trying to work on right now. So if we could zoom in and get a little tactical, I guess, and I'm sure it's
Mhm.
different for everybody on what will work in helping you make that transition in your identity. I know you've talked about hypnotherapy. Is that a big part of this process for you? Or like what is like how do you actually make an identity shift?
Yeah, for me, a lot of it has been hypnotherapy, and which is what I've been doing with my clients for the last 8 years. And then I do it for myself. Unfortunately, it takes double the amount of effort to do it for myself because I have to
I
both
bet.
create it and
Yeah.
then also receive it. And that can't be done concurrently, but it's worth it. Last year, as kind of the health issue was popping up, I was realizing that I didn't love my business model anymore. A lot of things happened last year. I ended up having to like leave and sell my home and leave the town I'd been living in for 5.5 years. And the way that I got through it was continually essentially brainwashing myself and, retraining my subconscious again towards like what I wanted rather than where I'd been. For anyone that doesn't know, so your subconscious is 95% of your brain. And what I always say, I'm like, I'm not a betting woman. But if I had to bet on a 5% chance of winning or a 95% chance of winning, I don't know about you, I'm going to choose the 95% every time. So it's why I say things too, like affirmations don't work because affirmations are only touching 5% of your brain. And the
Mm,
other 95% of your brain is like, girl, that's not true. You can't trick us that easily. Like, nice try.
mhm.
But that's BS. So subconscious stuff for me has been incredibly powerful. And I'm just constantly like, what stories are coming up for me right now that are telling me I can't have the thing or do the thing or be the thing? Cool. Let me go in. I'm going to remove the root of that. I'm going to shift my perspective on it. And then I'm going to put in place of it what I actually want instead. So the other thing that people need to know about the subconscious is that our subconscious is programmed before the age of 8. Before the age of 8, and it's 95% of our brain. So
Wow.
invite you right now, everyone who's listening, think back to your 8-year-old self. Could your 8-year-old self conceptualize the life you are currently living, the business you are currently running? But when I was 8 years old, we didn't have the internet. 95% of what is running my life right now is so out of date that like the job that I currently do didn't even exist when I was 8 years old. So if we think about it through that paradigm, and I'm guessing that a lot of your listeners are probably in a similar boat, if your 8-year-old self couldn't conceptualize the life you're living right now, your subconscious probably perceives the life you're living right now as a threat, which means that no matter how many affirmations you try to slap on yourself to think that it's safe to go after the 7-figure business or the, whatever you're looking for, your subconscious is going to be like, yeah, nice try. We're
Yeah.
going back to safety.
Wow. There's a Powerful point. And I think something that you mentioned is, you're essentially brainwashing yourself. I would maybe push back a little bit on that. I think the subconscious is like brainwashing us into believing that we're not capable of anything that we want, right? Like have you read the book A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson? Or maybe,
Oh, no, but I'm familiar with it. I haven't read it, but
yeah,
yes.
I'm reading it right now. And if you asked me to explain it to you, I'd do a terrible job because I haven't done it yet. So I haven't like really articulated what I've learned. But like one of the great quotes, I actually learned about it from a previous guest that we had. So I asked this billboard question at the end of the conversation, and he used a quote from that book. And the quote that he shared was, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And I truly believe that, we are divine beings. Like there is nothing we are not capable of. And I think that's inherent in all of us. And I think that our subconscious, the way that society is kind of programmed, like we are beaten down into believing the opposite of that. So I think that we are almost brainwashed, like the subconscious and how it's wired and what we've learned is the brainwashing to believing that we're not incredible, like capable of whatever. Right. So it's almost
Yeah.
like unwiring or unbrainwashing ourselves, but I guess, but I see how you use that.
Re-brainwashing.
Yeah. Re-brainwashing. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think
I
that
use
makes a
it
lot of
as
sense.
kind of like a tongue-in-cheek word because it is such a like, people are like, oh, you get brainwashed by cults. And I'm like, or you could brainwash yourself into your power. Like,
Right.
why not? Why not brainwash yourself into believing that you can do whatever you want? Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you do that?
Right. Incredible. So why don't you think that this is something that's taught more broadly? Because in the conversations that I've had with people and everybody that I know that does this work, it's unbelievable the transformation that you experience in your life when you return back to your power, return back to the divine being that you are, the whatever you want, whatever language you want to use for it. Why don't you think this is something that's taught more broadly?
I just saw a quote this morning and I'm going to butcher it because I'm real bad. The person I think it was in the 18 or 1900s who created the Department of Education, like the educational system in our country, said, we are not building people to be thinkers. We're building them to be workers. And
Yeah.
especially in the Industrial Revolution era, they needed people who would just comply, who would not think for themselves, who would not think outside the boxes in which they currently lived. They would not, prioritize growth. They would not prioritize expansion, and they would just do the things that they were told and taught to do. And so I think from a very young age, when we enter into school, I mean, think about it. We're taught to stand in line. We're taught to raise our hands. We're taught to, and I
Sit at
get
our
to a
desk.
certain, we need a sense of order, right? For the most part in our culture. Like we need some of those things. We need manners, we need values, we need those things. But I think that our school system is very much teaches us to be sheep in lines rather than to expand our thinking. I mean, imagine if even half of our world truly knew what they were capable of, truly knew what they were powerful, right? Like if even 50% or 51%, right, of our world was in that bucket,
Yeah.
what would our world look like?
It would be amazing.
Right?
It'd be so incredible. Just like,
And
yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I'm glad that like people like you and I are out here doing this. And like, I surround myself pretty much only with people that operate like this. And if I get
Hmm.
whiffed that I'm, consorting with someone that's like not aligned with this, I'm pretty much peace out real fast
Yeah.
because I'm just like,
Want the energy
I
in
don't
your
have
life.
those conversations. I don't
Yeah.
talk about those things. I don't, unfortunately, like in December, I had a member of my family tell me, I don't know why you think you're so special. You should just suffer and get a job like the rest of us. And I was like,
Whoa.
wow, that is a choice. Like I'm so glad that that was like what was available to you when you were growing up or my age. But like, that's no,
Yeah.
no.
What a submission. My goodness. And what just a sacrifice of a life that you, I don't know, would probably enjoy a whole lot more. And just like what a robbery to the world of the contributions that you could make if you were living in line with stepping into your power again, like whatever you want to call it. Like you're robbing the
Yeah.
world of the unique contribution and the unique gifts that you have by stepping in line and suffering. And not thinking you're so special, right? Like that's
Yeah.
wild. But yeah, I do think
Again, full respect though, like, they were my age 30-ish years ago. Like, I get
right.
that it was a completely different world,
Yeah.
but there's so much more available to us now. Like, my first client, when I started my coaching business, my very first client was from New Zealand. I've never even been to New Zealand before. Like,
Right.
I went to Bali like 10 years ago now, but like still, I'm like, I've still never even been to New Zealand. And that's where I
Yeah.
got one of my first clients. Like, what a cool world we live in now, that the opportunities and the things that we have at our fingertips. I get it. They didn't have that 30 years ago. So they look at it through such a different paradigm. But
Right.
I'm like, even my stepdad used to say to me, like, oh, you could get a good job, like earning $75,000 a year. And I'm like, my business is set up so that I can earn $75,000
A month.
a month.
Right. Yeah.
But
And
like,
you really, yeah,
it's just a
it
different,
breaks the brain. It
yeah,
completely is a different paradigm or outlook. And, you talked about your subconscious, your paradigm, your outlook is really wired before you're the age of 8, right? So it even is weird for the people that are growing up in this time. Yeah. And I think you're totally right. The education system was designed to create workers, not thinkers. But I think that we're coming to a point where it's becoming more and more obvious to more and more people that it's completely broken and it's not setting you up for success in today's world, right? Like there is so much more access. It's so much easier for you to go out and start your own thing and create your own value for the world, aka, be an entrepreneur, start your own business. And there's like, I'm optimistic to a fault. I'm naive, but I truly believe that, there is a lot of good that's going to come from this shift that's happening. It's going to be painful for a lot of people. And again, I'm naive, but I truly believe that this shift that's happening, with AI, with this disruption, like which whatever, more and more people are going to be forced into a situation where they have to figure out how to create their own value for the world. And I really believe that in order to be successful in starting your own business and in creating value in the world, you have to truly care. Like you have to really care about the person that you're helping, the problem that you're solving, the service you're delivering, the product you're creating, whatever it is, you have to genuinely give a and I think that that's going to be such a big upgrade for so many people where people are so disengaged, like they don't
yeah.
care about the work that they're doing. And I think that's so, like, again, we're just being robbed of all of the unique contributions that every individual has within them. You have a unique gift, a divine spark within you to contribute to the world and contribute to this project that we're all working on, which is this, human endeavor or whatever. So I'm really excited about this transition and the future that it could create because more people, the future that it could create where more people are in a situation where they have autonomy, they're making a unique contribution that they really give a about to the world and they're creating value, right? Like we're never going to run out of problems. Like no matter what technology comes, we're never going to run out of problems that need to be solved. And all entrepreneurs are problem solvers and all businesses are problem solving
Yep.
machines. So I think people like you are doing really, really important work that help people make that transition and do it in a way that it's not just going to completely take over their life. And I think the conversation that you're having now about like time and effort aren't the levers that are going to lead to a successful, sustainable, successful, exitable business, right? It's thinking about it a completely different way. And everything starts by making that identity shift and believing that you can be the person that goes and does X, Y, and Z, whatever that is that you want. So I think that's super important.
Well, I started studying a technology earlier this year, and it talks a lot about the size of your container. And so, like, for example, if you have a really small container, here, we'll use my cortado glass because I drink very small coffees, right? So if you're watching the video or if you're listening, just envision it's a very small glass. Cortados are usually, I think, like 4 to 5 ounces big, right? So if you have a very small container, there's only so much that can fit in here, right? I keep it very small because I want a lot of espresso and a little bit of milk. If you want more milk, you need a bigger container. If you want more greatness in your life, you need a bigger container. So I just got to my friend Hillary's house in Denver on Sunday and I walk in and she bought me a Stanley. And so as you can see, like it's a much, much bigger container. So if you want to say scale a business to be able to make more money, the first thing you have to do is you have to scale yourself, because if you have this teeny, teeny, tiny container and this is all that your container is capable of holding, you can't get a Stanley-sized amount of money to fit
Right.
into this container. It's going to leak all over the place. So in order to scale your business and to have all these amazing, great things that we're talking about, you have to first scale yourself. You have to build yourself into a bigger container to hold more so that you're not just a worker, you're also a thinker, so that you're not just leveraging your time, you're also leveraging your value and your skill sets, right?
Absolutely makes me think of a great line that I heard where it's entrepreneurship is just personal development wrapped in capitalism, right? You grow as the individual, the leader, right? The founder. And then in doing that, your business will grow. Like, and it's going to require, if you want to get your business to the next level, you want to grow your business, you need to grow as the individual, as the leader in the organization.
Well, and I'll tell you too. So, I mean, I had a small container for a really long time. And I thought that if I just worked harder, that I could make more money. But again, it's a small container. It only holds so much. So even though I was working harder, I didn't have the capacity to hold it. So it all overflowed and it all went away, right? This is why I talk about, like, you have to change yourself first.
Yeah.
You have to do that identity work to become the person that can have, a Stanley Cup sized amount of liquid or wealth or greatness or success or whatever.
Yeah. And I think maybe this is leading way too far into the metaphor, but when you're the individual, like when you're inside the container, right? What's the whole thing about the jar metaphor or
Oh
whatever?
yeah, you can't
Like, yeah.
label.
Yeah, right, exactly. So like when you're in that container, it's really hard for you to be able to work on expanding it and making it bigger. Or maybe when you have this realization, you're hearing what we're talking about and you're like, okay, I need to make my container bigger. Maybe you're going to focus on but you're going to make a lot of mistakes, right? In that journey of trying to grow your container, so that like working with somebody who has gone through that expansion process in their own life and they can look back and help you. It's like, no, don't worry about making a better top to your container, worry about, expanding this area of the container or whatever, right? And then helping you,
Yep.
having somebody guide you through that process is going to remove a lot of the pain in that journey.
Yep.
For
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
Amazing. So going back to the idea of imposter syndrome, is there anything different about maybe uprooting or removing that brainwashed idea of like the imposter syndrome, like I don't deserve this thing, or, I am out of place in trying to do something? Like, why would I ever think I could be capable of doing something like that? Is there anything unique about uprooting an imposter syndrome versus maybe some of the other identity shifts that need to be made?
So the way that I do hypnotherapy is that the process is the same in all of them. And the questions are the same in terms of especially locating the root, removing it, shifting the perspective. What changes is the new programming that we put in, right? It's like the new things. And it talks about how it's basically like starting to prove to yourself that you are capable and that you know a lot of things, and that, it's that these stories that the imposter is trying to tell you are just outdated information. And so not necessarily like the way we get into hypnosis, the way we do like all the prep work to like remove the old stories, remove all the outdated programming, is all the same for all of the hypnoses. I actually was in the recording studio last week doing professional recordings of all of them. And I was like, if I have to say the same script one more time, I swear to God, I was like, no more. I'm done saying the same thing. But it really is the juiciness of the new part is really where that excitement lies. And one other thing about hypnosis too, and I think I got hypnosis when I lived in LA in 2015 maybe, and it didn't work. And so I think a lot of people have this experience where they go to a hypnotherapist and they have a session and then it doesn't work. Your brain learns through repetition. The reason that your brain is brainwashed to what it is right now is because those things were repeated. And then not only were they repeated in your childhood, you've now repeated them for how many decades since that time, right? Yeah. And so the way that I do subconscious reprogramming is that the first track is we uproot We shift the perspective, we remove, but then every day for 30 days thereafter is where the reinforcement comes in. So for 15 minutes a day, you're listening to that reinforcement track being like, there's no such thing as an imposter. You're capable. It's like all the storyline of all of that stuff. And you have to do it every day for 30 days because like you couldn't just pick up a French dictionary, scroll through it once and be like, ooh, I'm fluent, right? You got to practice. Your brain has to practice. So the way that we do it is really that like consistent application of the daily reinforcement to make sure that your brain is latching onto the new information and not just defaulting back to the old stuff because you're not practicing.
Amazing. Yeah, the repetition piece is absolutely critical. It's just like anything that you're trying to do. The value really doesn't come in doing it once. It comes in doing it every day for X amount of times or consistently, right?
I mean, it would be nice to just go to the gym and have the shoulders that I want to have just once. If I could just go once and just have the shoulders that I want to have, I would, believe me, I would sign up for that too, y'all.
Yeah.
And
right.
None of us live in that reality, unfortunately.
No, but I think the price you have to pay in order to get it, right? The sacrifice you have to make or whatever, the journey that you go through, right? The pain, the sweat, right? That's what makes it all worth it in the end. And yeah, I wouldn't really want it any other way. I feel like if it was, we've gotten a sense to see what instant gratification does to us. We're not wired that way. We're not wired for instant gratification. Like it's a good thing that you kind of have to go out and earn the things that you want to have because it just makes it all that much sweeter. Instant gratification, not made for that. Amazing. Going back to the idea of shifting your business from time and effort are the lever to identity and leverage is that the second piece? Is it identity and leverage? Is that the second one?
Time and effort versus your mind and your energy. So yeah, your identity and your energy.
Love it.
Which to me, energy for me means more like your frequency than, oh, I'm tired. It's not that kind of energy. It's like, what frequency am I operating at? Am I operating? There's the Scale of Consciousness by David Hawkins, if no one's familiar with it. It says that every single emotion has a different hertz or a different frequency that it's associated with. So if you're vibrating at a frequency of shame, it's a really, 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 really low vibration. That's not really going to get you. Like it's definitely not aligned with the vibration of love or success or wealth, right? So you want to make sure that like what I do is I make sure that my energetic resonance is in the higher realms most days as much as I can, because it's in that frequency that my dreams live and that my goals live. So I need to be in that frequency to be a match to what I'm building. So that's what I say when I say energy as well.
Nice. If you would have explained that to me 2 years ago, I'd been like, this lady is crazy. What is she talking about? She's talking about waves, vibrations, all this stuff. Like, what are we talking about? But then if you like look at history, you read like origins of religion, whatever, like people knew this intuitively hundreds, thousands of years ago. But now whoever it is, right, has done a lot of work to make that sound super crazy to us today. Like that idea is super crazy, but it is very true. Like everything is a vibration in this universe, right? It's all waves, like whatever, like you do some reading on it.
Well,
I encourage that.
First of all, people can totally think I'm full of I don't care. If you're listening to this and be like, this lady's full of cool. I appreciate that. Have a nice life. No harm, no foul. I don't really care. But there's a really easy way to illustrate this. So I grew up in Minneapolis. There were 2 radio stations we listened to primarily. 101.3, which was like the rap and the like, modern day, whatevers. And then like, I think it was 92.7, which was like classic rock or whatever, right? Well, if you want to listen to pop music, you can't have your radio tuned at 92.7 because that's not the frequency that music comes through at. Right. You want pop music to play, you got to retune your radio frequency to 101.3 KDWB because that's the radio station that it comes through on. You want classic rock, little Doobie Brothers, the Doors, you got to change it to 92.7. Otherwise, you're not going to hear that. So it's the exact same. We are we are energetic beings. Our heart, our mind has electromagnetic fields. So if we want to attract in or experience in a life that's aligned with 101.3, we got to make sure that our frequency is tuned to that. Because if we're tuned to 92.7, we're never going to hear the pop music that we desire to hear reverberating through our life. That could look like money. That could look like a relationship. That could look like whatever you want to, whatever you're aiming towards. But you can think I'm crazy. I don't care. But like, that's a literal example of frequencies in your world today that proves exactly what I just said.
Yeah, it's a perfect metaphor for sure. And so how do you navigate like the kind of the frequencies? Like what makes up what frequency you're in? Like what makes up our frequency?
So for me, it's how I'm feeling. So it's, definitely starting with my physical body, how I'm thinking. So where's my head at today? Are there things that I'm worried about? Are there things that I started studying Kabbalah earlier this year? So like, are there things I need to hand to the creator? Are there things that I'm feeling doubtful about? And how can I step into more certainty that I'm being led, I'm being guided, I'm always being taken care of all of the time? And I would like to say too, like, I don't just say these things. Like, I have gone through the hardest 17 months of my life. And that's saying a lot. I grew up with a lot of trauma. And I just went through the hardest 17 months of my life. And I am more joyful, more certain, more trusting. I literally just became a nomad 6 days ago.
Wow.
And I'm like, the universe has provided me 4 months of free places to live with more coming. Literally just getting off of the hardest 17 months of my life. So I don't just say these things. I don't just spout these things. Like this is my life. This is what I practice. So
Yeah.
I'll do things every morning. Like I'll do a yoga, like a 10-minute yoga thing. I do breath work. I do, sometimes the yoga's Kundalini. Sometimes it's more of like a power flow. I do lifting. I lift weights. I'm always reading some sort of fiction book. I know a lot of like personal development people will be like, you have to read nonfiction. I read fiction and I love it. It's so satisfying. I created earlier this year YouTube playlists so that every day I just get up. Today's Thursday. I get up. I pull open the Thursday playlist. It has one tapping session, one yoga thing, one lifting thing, one meditation, one journaling prompt. And so then I just go through it and I'm like, ding, 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 ding. And I do all the things to get myself in resonance and aligned and in my frequency before I even think about stepping into my business for the day.
Yeah, something you have to be incredibly intentional about. And I love how you talked about it starts with the physical because the physical is the foundation for the mind. And the mind is what that beacon is. It's going to put you in tune with wherever you're going to be, right? Whatever outcomes you're going to create in your life, it all starts with the internal story that you're telling yourself or whatever the frequency it is that you're at. So there's another great quote. I'm also not typically historically very good at recalling quotes exactly correctly, but there's one, it's like related to, God, the creator, whatever, is going to give you, like every challenge in your life is given to you for a reason, to teach you something, right? Because you were handed this at this time for a specific reason to teach you a specific thing. So what do you feel like you talked about this last 17 months being the hardest 17 months of your life. Why do you think you were given the challenges that you were, and what have you learned through that? Obviously, we talked a lot about this and need for an identity shift. Is there anything else that you could kind of supplement, and what have you taken from this experience?
I mean, I think a huge thing of it. So my whole 17 months kicked off with a shoulder injury. And I always look up, Louise Hay wrote a book called Heal Your Body. And she says that every physical manifestation in your body has an energetic underpinning. So the energy is there first, and then it manifests into some sort of physical thing in your body, right? So left shoulder injury, it's called frozen shoulder. They don't really know what causes it. There's not really a treatment for it. They don't really know how to get rid of it. You just live with it until it stops being frozen one day and then you're like healed, whatever. So I look up Louise Hay, Heal Your Body, left shoulder. And it says, carrying the weight of the world without joy. And I felt like someone had punched me. I was like, I've never felt so seen by a dead woman in my life. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's true. I have been carrying the weight of the world since I was a child. At the age of 3, my dad was a bipolar paranoid schizophrenic. And when he had me every other weekend, I had to figure out how to feed myself because he was passed out, because he used drugs and alcohol to manage his mental health issues. And so at the age of 3, I had to figure out how to be an adult. And since the age of 3, so for the last 40 years, I have been carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. And so last January, I was like, I can't carry anything anymore. And I had to put everything down. Physically, emotionally, mentally, like I had to put everything down. And doing that then raised all these other areas where I was like, oh my gosh, I have been compromising and sacrificing what I truly want in my life, possibly forever. So this year in January, my intention for the year was, how great can I stand it? And what I truly believe over the last 17 months is that all of the things that were not aligned with my frequency of greatness have had to go. And unfortunately, it's looked like my business, my home. This is a new one. I haven't talked about this anywhere yet. My marriage, my identity, everything I feel like that was true in my life 18 months ago is gone. And I've really had to sit with, what does greatness mean to me? And if I'm truly committed to my greatness, am I willing to tell that family member, you don't get access to me anymore because I don't have people in my life that say those things to me, that talk to me like, you know, it's like I've had to make a whole lot of different decisions around, again, like if I'm continuing to leverage my time, I am always going to be a slave to my business.
Yeah.
What are my other options? What does greatness look like? What is a business model that aligns with my greatness? What's a living situation that aligns with my greatness? I'm going to be a full-time house sitter for the next 3 months. You know, like it is what it is. And I'm so excited and in love with the idea of being able to explore. I'm going to be in Napa. I'm going to be in LA. I'm currently in Denver. I'm on my way to San Francisco. And who knows after that, right? But I don't know. It's really opened me up to this idea that the decisions that I made in the past were not necessarily aligned with who I've become and who I'm continuing to become. And have become so committed to my greatness that I won't engage in anything that's not at that frequency anymore.
Yeah. And what have you found your greatness means? So you mentioned that that's something that you kind of had to rediscover what that means to you. So what have you found your greatness means to you?
I mean, a big part of it is obviously starting to come in through my business now. And it is like having a business model that lets me, you know, increase an ad spend and 10x my revenue for the month, or bring on 10 joint venture partners and hit 6 figures this month. Or, you know, like, again, like leveraging things that are not my time in order to create more abundance in my life, which then gives me more freedom to invest in other women-owned businesses. It gives me the freedom to give more donations to nonprofits. It gives me the freedom to be more generous with the ones that I love in my life, or to spontaneously fly to Minneapolis for my nephew's birthday, or, you know, like it lets me spread more love in the world. And so that's one of the bigger ways it's come in. There are more ways that it's coming in, that I know it's coming in, still like very, 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 very fresh things that I'm still trying to sit down and be like, okay, what happened there? What were the things that were not great in that situation? And what am I committed to calling in or aligning with moving forward?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think one kind of underlying thing there is, you know, you're somebody who has done this work and been focused on this stuff and been aware of this stuff for years, right? And then little bit. Yeah, right. Yeah, just a little bit, right?
Like 15
Right.
years or
Just
more.
like 15 years. And even after, you know, 13 years of studying this stuff and helping others with it, you still are going through this So like this is not something that you just kind of do one time and then you're kind of set. It's no, you are going to be consistently like once you get through one challenge, you're then going to be presented with another that you have to overcome. And like that is the journey of life. And I'm sure this could be said a lot more eloquently, but I think the point that I'm trying to make is that the work that you're talking about isn't something that you do one time. It's a lifelong thing, and you're just going to continue to grow through this journey, right?
I mean, unless you want, like I think about my grandfather, and he had the same job for my entire life, right?
Yeah.
And so like there are some people where, and growing up in the Midwest, it was very much like you go to college, you find a husband, you get married, you get a job, you pop out 2.5 children, and you wash, rinse, repeat for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And personally, that would kill me. And my guess is that most of the people listening to this podcast are also not aligned with that, right? So like if you want a wash, rinse, repeat life, probably you don't have to do this work.
Yeah.
But if you're in the business of growth and if you're in a space where you want more in your life, and once you get there, you're going to want to up the ante again. And once you get there, you're going to want to up the ante again. That kind of growth, massive, rapid growth, you have to continually change yourself. And so I am very committed
and I think
to that.
Also, I'm from Wisconsin, so I get it. I think the only difference between growing up in Wisconsin versus growing up in Minnesota is we wear green and gold, you wear purple and whatever whatever it is. That's literally the only difference.
I refuse.
Yeah, right.
I refuse. I have one Vikings sweatshirt and it is white with silver threading. I refuse. I will not put on purple.
Nice. I love it. But that idea, if you're in the business or if you're committed to growing, you're also going to commit yourself to experiencing a lot of pain. Right? You're going to consistently be going through these painful processes of reinvention and realizations and difficult things that you have to go through, right? And that pain is going to look a lot different, and it's probably going to be a lot greater the farther that you go. But obviously the reward is going to be bigger and bigger. But yeah, that's the thing. Like that's the flip side of what I had talked about, right? Like me being super optimistic and like really fighting against, I mean, I'm not fighting against the system. I'm not like, got the whatever. It's like, that system is great because like the existing system of, all right, you just go to school, get a job, do what you're told. Like it's easy because you can kind of just turn your brain off and just do what you're told and not have to think and do the scary thing of looking in and asking yourself, what do I actually want? And then realizing that and then looking at your life and being like, this is completely disconnected from what I actually want. And then now doing the painful thing of, okay, I'm going to change, right? And completely stop doing this thing that I've been doing my whole life, right? And reinventing myself, which is extremely painful to just even step away and go out and bridge on and then now you're on your own. Now everybody talks about when you're an entrepreneur, when you start your business, you're going to have so much freedom, but nobody talks about the flip side of that where nobody's telling you what you have to do. So you're just like making all these mistakes and you have no clue. You wake up on Monday, you're like, I don't know. Like, so you have to get in the routine of figuring out, okay, planning and right, like all this stuff. So it's a really difficult process because now you're taking your life in your hands and you're not just letting somebody tell you what you need to do and, just kind of walking in line and doing that, which is comfortable. It's a lot more comfortable.
Yep.
But if you want to grow and, be in control and take ownership over the outcomes in your life and step into your power, if you want to call it that, or whatever you want to call it, like it's going to be really, really, really uncomfortable, but it's all worth it.
It's so worth it. And I always say too, like so many people are so afraid of the unknown. And I'm like, but that's where the magic lives.
Yeah, right.
The magic lives in the unknown. If you're just in the known all day, every day,
yeah,
you don't see the magic or you're not open to it. You have to step into the unknown. I will tell you. So I left Minneapolis on my 2nd. It's currently my 7th. So I think I'm on day 6. I've been calling this Operation Magic. And every single day I've been trying to find like a little piece of magic, no matter where it is, right? And so on day 1, as I'm driving through Iowa, I look over and there's a license plate that says Bri. And it's spelled the way my name is spelled. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
And then last night we go out for dinner and I pull up and there's a car that like is in front of me pull up and put it in park. And my friend that's with me is like, no way. And the license plate in front of us said Joy on it. And
Wow.
just like, but like, had I not decided to uproot and come to Denver, like I wouldn't have experienced those things either. And so I would encourage people to also remember that the dreams that you currently have currently exist in the unknown. And so if you're spending your whole life afraid of the unknown as well, you're literally protecting yourself from the thing that it is that you want the most. So how can you start to play with and flex the safety within the unknown? Can you have a beginner's mind again? Can you go pick up a new craft? I just got needle felting. I've never done it before, but I'm going to like try this new thing because like, why not put myself and like flex the unknown? It's also why I started traveling and house sitting, is because, you know, when you have to make lunch in a kitchen that's not yours, you got to start flexing some unknown neural pathways and think differently. And, you know, you're putting yourself in different situations. And I think it's really important in the process too, is to like really trust into the unknown. Cause like you said, you wake up on Monday, you don't know what's going to happen this week. You got to create it.
Yep, for sure. And there's nobody telling you what to do. And I think there's a great Rumi quote about when you start to walk on the way appears. You're not going to know the way just by thinking about it. Like you have to start taking action and start taking steps on the path. And it's just one step at a time. Like you just take one step, your best educated guess on what that step would look like for you. And then once you take that step, the next step will appear, right? So it's just once you start to walk on the way appears. Thank you for sharing that story about like the license plate and the little things that you start to notice. It's the universe, whatever, will start to kind of give you little signals about where you're going and
that you're on the
where
right
you're gonna
path.
go. Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Bri, thank you so much for the time. I have one more question for you, but before we do that, where can people get in touch? Where can people find you?
The best probably two places are on my website and on Instagram. But basically, if you Google my name, Bri Seeley, Briseeley, you will find me anywhere. As far as I think there are a few other Bri Seeleys in the world, but they definitely don't have the SEO that I have. So
Nice.
if you Google me, it's me. You'll find me.
Nice. Amazing. We'll have the links in the description and the show notes of everything. So you can definitely go check out Bri and all of her amazing work. But Bri, final question for you. This is a recurring question that I ask all of my guests. If you had a giant billboard that everyone in the world could see for 10 seconds, what would it say and why?
Claim your greatness and do the work to get there, because it is so worth it.
Absolutely. And I think everything that we've discussed in this conversation kind of underlines the reason why. Amazing. Claim your greatness. Bri, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. The main thing I'm taking from my conversation with Bri is that effort can build a business, but it cannot be the foundation the business depends on forever. At some point, the founder has to ask whether they built an actual asset or just created a more sophisticated job for themselves. Bri's phrase about a business being built through mind and energy instead of time and effort gets to the heart of that distinction. Time and effort are finite, so if those are the primary levers, the founder will eventually become the ceiling. The deeper work behind this transition is not only delegation, productivity, or better systems. It is becoming the kind of person who can hold a different model of success without defaulting back to overfunctioning. If you want to get connected with Bri, you can find her website and Instagram linked in the description of this episode. And if you run a coaching program, course, or mastermind and your clients aren't completing the work the way that you would want them to, download the free Program Execution System Toolkit in the description. It'll show you how to build what I call execution infrastructure in your program so more of your clients actually follow through and get results. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.